This is the fourth video on Project 2B and Access in the Go Office 2010 textbook. I'm on page 548, Objective 12. We're going to do some calculated fields in a query. If you know how to do calculations in Excel, then you know how to do it in Access as well. Instead of cells like A1 or B10 or something like that, we're going to use the column names instead, which actually makes it a little bit easier to understand, I think. So the query that we're trying to answer this time is, what is the value of each scholarship if the Alumni Association makes a matching 50% donation? So we need to compute 50% of each scholarship amount. So we're going to create new query, and we want scholarships awarded. And apparently we don't need the other table for this one, so we will leave it at that. And we want the student ID, double click. We want the scholarship name. Whoops, that's the wrong one. So I'll just go down here and get your fat black arrow, which, you know, you gotta be kind of careful. There's not a big space here. You get the black arrow, but get your fat black arrow, click on it to select it, then right click, and there is no delete, but there's a cut, and that will get rid of it. So I want student ID, I want scholarship name, and I want scholarship amount. Okay, and we're going to do this by ascending order on student ID. So let's go to sort here and do ascending. And I'm just going to make my columns here a little bit wider so we can see what the names of the fields are. Get your two-headed arrow here and just double click. Okay, and now what I want to do is I want to go to the first empty column over here and right click and choose zoom. And all that does is open up a bigger box here. So instead of working in a small box like we have down here, I've just got a little bit more room to work in. And what I want to do here is I want to create a calculated field, and I'm going to give it a name. The name is going to be matching donation, and put a colon after the name to separate the name from the formula. And the formula is going to be the amount field, and they put square brackets around it. Square brackets are only necessary around field names if there's a blank in them, like scholarship name down here or student ID down here. Technically we don't need those square brackets, but you'll probably see them a lot. If Access creates a query for you, it always puts the square brackets around the field names, whether there's blanks in them or not. And what I want is I want to multiply that by 0.5 and click on OK. And now if I look down here and get my two-headed arrow and drag and make this a little wider, it'll show me, let's double click on that, it'll show me that this is the field name and this is the formula that's going to be used to compute it. And now let's go ahead and run the query. And first few lines should look like figure 2.38 on the top of page 549. 300, half of that's 150, 250, half of that's 125, half of 200 is 100, and so on. And it has correctly computed all of the matching donations. And now we're going to go back to design view. I'm on number 8 on page 549. And in the field row, we want the first empty column over here on the right. And we're going to call this column total scholarship, colon, and it's going to be amount plus matching, and these are required now, square brackets, because matching donation has a blank in it, and hit enter. Okay, and so I've got something that's wrong here, and I'm just going to right click and I'm going to zoom on it. And what you see is I missed the square bracket and typed a curly bracket, so let's put a square bracket in there, and let's click on OK. And now let's go ahead and run our scholarship. And if you have a scholarship of 300 plus 150, you'll get 450 total. 250 plus 125 is 375. And that's how you do a calculated field. Okay, let's go back to Design View. And back in Design View, we want to go to the Matching Donation column here. And on the Design tab, in the Show Hide group, we want to see the property sheet for that column. And mine got scrunched a little bit here, so let's drag it out so we can see it better. And this is a property sheet that has properties that affect this column right here. And I want to go to the General tab, and I want to click on the Format property. And we're going to click on the down arrow and choose Currency. Now, when we did it before, there was no $sign. So we're going to format as currency. We're going to set decimal places equal to 0. And then we're going to go ahead and close this. And we're going to run the query. And now you see the $signs here. And I got 2 decimal places on total scholarship over here. So let's go back to that one as well. And at this time I'm just going to right click on it and choose properties. I think that's the easiest way to do it. And for decimal places on this, I want 0, and it's doing currency already, but we'll just explicitly say it up here. And now if we run it, we get 0 decimal places on everything. And now they want to save this as Matching Donations query. So let's go ahead and close it. And yes, I want to save the changes. We're going to call this Matching Donations query. Click on OK. Let's go to our File tab and do a print preview. And let's see what we get here. And we might want to change this one to landscape as well so we can see more stuff. It still doesn't quite work. And what we can do here is we can try and reformat that. They don't really talk about that in the textbook, so we're not going to worry about it. So we'll still end up with 2 pages, but that's okay. We're not going to print it out anyway. So go ahead and close print preview. And now we're on Objective 13 on page 551. And we're going to compute some statistics. We're going to use min, max, average, and sum functions, which you may remember from Excel, are functions we used in Excel as well. So the question is that we want to answer is, what is the total dollar amount of all scholarships awarded? And we're going to create a new query. So go to Create, Query Design, and we want the scholarships awarded. And close that. And it says expand the field list here. Add the amount field to the design grid. So here's my amount field. Just double click on it. And on the Design tab, I want to go to the Show Hide group. And I want to add a total row. And now you'll see that there is a total row down here. And the default value for that is group by, and they want us to they want us to select min, so this will give us the lowest scholarship. Run the query, and the lowest scholarship is $100. Let's go back to Design View and try the max function and run it. It'll give us the biggest scholarship, which is $750. Let's go back to Design View and do the average and run it, and the average is $358.33. And let's go back to Design View one more time, and let's click on sum and click on run, and it'll give us the sum of all the scholarships. Okay. We can also do sums for group instead of for all of the data, which is what we're doing right here. We can also group the data and get sums and mins and maxes and averages for different groups. So we want to go back to design view, and they want us to drag student ID to the first column. So if I drag student ID down here and drop it, amount slides over. And on the total row under student ID, it says group by, and so that means we're going to group by student ID. So if one student has more than one scholarship, they'll be grouped together, and we'll get the sum of that student's scholarships. And we had 30 rows in here, you remember, for student IDs, and so we have 30 students, I think, but we only have 27 rows here. So some of those students are getting more than one scholarship. And I said that wrong. There are 30 scholarships, not 30 students. So the 30 scholarships, those 30 scholarships are going to 27 students, which means that 3 students are getting multiple scholarships. Okay, now we want to go back to design view. I'm on page 553 now. Delete the student ID field. Just get the fat black arrow, right click, and choose cut. And now we're going to drag sport down, and we're going to drag it right here, and amount gets shoved over. And it's telling us we're going to group by sport, and we'll get the total amount of scholarships for each sport. And let me see, we want the amount, properties, whoops, it was already there, I didn't need to do that. Properties, we want the format to be currency, and we want the decimal places to be 0. And then we're going to go ahead and run our query, and it tells us how much we have for each sport. This should be the same as the picture on the top of page 554, and it looks like it is. They want us to save this as total by sport query, so let's go over here and click, and yes, I want to, and this is going to be total by sport query. And that's about 12 minutes on this video now, so we will quit here. This is the end of the 4th video, and we will finish with video number 5 on Objective 14.